watching the Break It Down show.
Yeah, this is cool. We got a couple of filmmakers. Here's the thing. We love covering all kinds of films, whether they're big, massive budget films. But one of my favorite things is to bring in people that don't necessarily make a movie for the biggest, we had Billy Ray on the show, right? He makes things like Terminator, that kind of thing. But all movies are impossible and improbable and have such great stories. And that's why I love bringing guys like Jordan and Chris in, because they do the impossible. They get it done, and they get it done out of their passion for this. And I think all of you guys have such great journeys. And then also I brought in my friend and co-host and my movie expert, Geoff. And Geoff is going to sort of, hold down the, hey, Pete, shut up. Let me actually ask a real question about what these guys do. But Geoff Calhoun has his own podcast. And Geoff, real quick, plug your show for those that are into screenwriting and doing what you do.
Of course.
You are incredible at it.
Oh, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. So I run the Successful Screenwriter podcast. I'm the author of the Guide for Every Screenwriter. It's a best-selling novel. And with that, we launched the successfulscreenwriter.com, which is a website full of all kinds of resources for screenwriters.
Super cool. Hey, Geoff, you watched the movie. What did you think of it? And by the way, it's called The Shade Shepherd. I'm going to put some links in there for you guys. So just watch the screen. And if you're listening on the podcast, I'd look in the show notes as always. The links will be in there. Go ahead, Geoff.
All right. So I'm not allowed to give spoilers. So, but this is a good film, and it actually talks a lot about a subject that was near and dear to me because it's a drama between two brothers that are kind of on a journey to find themselves, find who they are in the world, and how they can try and save each other. And one thing I really like and about this. Jordan, you're a writer on this, correct?
Yep.
Did you write this, Jordan? You did. So one thing that really spoke to me is about a man dealing with becoming a father, because that's something I had to really weigh with in my life. And I was just wondering, before we really get into it, because I know Pete's going to want to go somewhere. So eventually my question is going to be like where the inspiration was for that.
Well, Faulisi and me, we co-wrote this together, and
okay.
And I was going through, changes in my life. Like I was turning 30, and I was getting married at the end of the year, and now I have an 18-month-old. So I almost missed the premiere for this film because my wife was, giving birth. So when you see the film, it kind of, strange, life is like fiction a little bit. And I just think because I knew that what was coming, that was going to be somewhere in the next 2 years, hopefully, if I was blessed enough to have a child. And I was thinking about it. Yeah.
And Chris, when did you bring into the script? Did you bring in any of that? Did the influence of the brothers kind of come into play? What was your kind of inspiration for the script?
Well, it all started because Jordan wrote the first draft of the script, and it was a very, very different thing. It was about 45 or 50 pages, and it was just sort of a skeleton in a shell. And his original pitch was like, "Hey, Chris, let's go out into the woods and make a movie, and we'll just kind of improv it." And I was like, "Yeah, not the improv part. Let's figure this out." So we just kind of threw it back and forth, and we sat there, at his old place in Los Angeles, and just kind of ran through ideas. And I think the big one for me was the ending, which I don't want to talk too much about. But that once we had that. That became sort of the guiding light for the film, and that was like kind of the moment that I was like, yeah, we're really going to do this. We're really going to make this. I think there's something here.
Yeah, I think that it's just so cool because I love the dramas, but this story is something that it needs to be talked about, but you don't hear a lot about it. You don't see films about a guy worried about becoming a dad. You don't see films about two brothers trying to take care of each other when they're both broken people. And I just love the fact that you guys touched on that because there is something there to speak out to people dealing with that. I like movies. I like scripts that have something to say, and this absolutely does.
Thank you.
Hey, fellas, I wanted to ask about the premise of the film. Would you call it a thriller? Would you call? how would you guys characterize the genre that it's in?
A thriller it fits, but I mean, I kind of look at anything that I do as a drama, and that's a dirty word in independent film, so I never said it. And sorry to our distributors. It's not a drama. Definitely not a drama. No. But I just look at everything kind of in a more dramatic sense. Obviously there's genre conventions, but what's important is the story, the people, the characters, and I think you could treat almost any film like that, except maybe a comedy, but I'm afraid of comedies.
And thrillers are also kind of a hard sell. We had Mark Pellington on a while ago. He directed Arlington Road, and he's like, it's just, I love to make them, but it's impossible to get people to back you and to buy the film. It's not impossible, but the job is already hard enough. So he's like, so I'm kind of by the art compelled to kind of nudge out of the thriller zone. Why would you guys pick something that fits into these two problematic categories? Like, do you just not give a damn about that? You're like, we're just going to make something good and let it live on its own? Or what are your thoughts on that? Because, I mean, marketability is important.
Yeah, it is. And, we definitely talked about it. But one of the benefits of making something as low budget as we did is that we didn't have to do as much convincing in terms of raising the money and proving the marketability beforehand. And I do have a belief that if you make something good and you're passionate about it, if it's something you would want to watch, like, you can hopefully find an audience for it. And I think that's more important than trying to be like, you can line everything up to be smart and fit these boxes that we think are going to sell. But by the time the movie's out, the whole market could have changed. Everything could be different. And I'm, not looking down on anyone who does that, because it makes sense and it's a reality of the industry. But when you have such a low budget project, you are freed in those ways to be like, well, we want to do that.
Well, and I think it's fair to say too that when you get a thriller right, low budget, limited budget, medium, whatever budget you're at, the Sixth Sense, all of a sudden everybody's making that movie now. It flips the market, and it's nimble operations that are able to do that, where they're able to like, yeah, nobody's going to take a bet on this, so we're going to bet on ourselves and, change everything in one movie.
So I got something. Because in the film, Jordan's character, Jack, is an archer, and he does traditional archery. I'm actually a traditional archer.
Get out of here.
Yeah, I practice it. So when I saw your character from the long shot shooting the bow with the 5-inch wide fletchings and nailing bullseye, you're doing that.
Definitely. And I mean, we don't cut that shot.
No, that's I wouldn't either.
Yeah, that we it's a wide, and I thank God Faulisi let me show off. Well, it took some practice. I mean, I was in LA shooting out of lemons out of a lemon tree. And I didn't have that far to shoot because it's LA, you don't have any land out there. And I think Faulisi was a little nervous about that aspect, but I grew up in Indiana. I've been around, hunters and, fishermen and all that stuff. And I kind of was used to it a little bit. I wasn't afraid of it. And I think one time I hit a lemon out of a tree from a good distance. Like I stuck the arrow through the lemon and it just swayed. And then Faulisi is like, okay, I think we can do it. Now, ask me to do that right now. I don't know. But yeah, I felt pretty confident with it.
No, I think I just watched it. I was like, look at this guy. He's dropping some serious skill right here. This is a great flex. And I was like, because I do it too. It takes me a good quiver full of arrows to warm up, but then at 30 yards, I can nail bullseye too. And but I saw like even the fletchings. This guy's got the wide fletchings on there to get more drag on the arrow. I was like, so that's really cool for traditional archers out there.
Yeah, I mean, it was the first time shooting a recurve for me. Which it's kind of I don't know. Maybe I could ask you. It's more of an instinctual weapon, isn't it? Like
100%.
I felt like I could never really aim with it. It was only
you gotta feel it. You gotta feel. You gotta look where it goes, and then train the body for the release. And once the body has the release down, the arrow will go there, but you have to trust it. It's like filmmaking, right? You have to trust it. So
totally.
I thought that was awesome. But I gotta ask you guys, why 1987? I mean, obviously, you guys did a ton of stuff with the sets and the hairstyles, the talent, and I think you probably were I can imagine you were scouring eBay trying to find anything 1987 to fit in this film.
Yeah.
We were scouring Indiana, that's for sure.
Yeah.
There's a couple reasons. I think it was interesting, and we had been developing a project before this that was set in the 80s, and when that didn't all come together, we were kind of sad about that because I had just kind of gotten into it. We both had done some research, and it was a really interesting period. And this originally, we were, the first couple of drafts we wrote, and it was modern. But we started to come into some issues of technology that drove it away from what we felt like the film was about. Like, they had to be there. We had to acknowledge the fact that there's all this technology now, like cell phones. Could they be tracked? Like, it created things that felt like they needed to be dealt with on a plot level that we weren't interested in on a thematic level. So in order to like sort of simplify it and break it down to its like core, the 80s, it made sense. It got rid of those technological plot points that we would have had to have and weren't interested in.
But why 87? What about that year stands out? I mean, was it because I graduated from high school that year? Was that like, Pete would appreciate
I was born that year.
His graduation.
He was born that year. I was born in 88, so we had to fight it out over 87, 88.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Very good.
Did the other project that didn't make it through, like you guys looked around and you're like, we got all this 80s clothing, and does that kind of also drive it too, since you'd already acquired stuff, or no?
We didn't acquire anything. It was just like I had started researching the era just to kind of understand it aesthetically, and I was just I was drawn to it. It was really fun. That was a script that was it was set in the 80s, so I felt like I had to learn about it. And so when the idea, it was like one of those things where we were just sitting and talking, and it was like, well, what if we just set this in the 80s? Do you think we could pull it off?
Yeah, and we were close on that one. I think we were a little heartbroken that one did not go through, and we were feeling the 80s at that point. I mean, we flew to Indiana from LA. We scouted a bunch of bowling alleys. We were just in it, and it didn't work out. So but like Faulisi said, it came down to the people. It's like in the film, my character Jack, he goes and calls his wife on a payphone. Back in the day, you had to try to call somebody. Nowadays, we take it for granted. It's real quick. But when you wanted to make a call, you had to make a call, and it meant something. It's like, I'm going to pull over the side of the road. I'm going to pop in quarters because I want to talk to you. And, I don't know. And call me old fashioned.
Because I'm from the 80s, I'm curious what stood out to you guys. And then because you're from Indiana, did you know that like in 87, very likely someone had a John Cougar shirt, not just the John Cougar Mellencamp shirt, but they would have gone to that concert in 83 with Jack and Diane, and they'd still be rocking that shirt 4 years later.
Oh, yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about what you guys discovered about the 80s. I'm curious what you did. And then, talk about any kind of John Cougar Mellencamp or John Cougar references that came up in the history.
That's such a hard question, man.
Yeah.
Or it's not, but it is.
There was a lot of little details. I think that's when you do a period piece and you're doing it as an indie film, you start to like realize certain things that you wouldn't know or you wouldn't think about. On a bigger budget project, I'm not an art director, but you have like a production designer and art director who can build a whole set. We're trying to like find places that can work in 87. And it's like, you're going through and you start to learn like, oh, this is how like light fixtures have changed. This is how like switches have changed. Oh, this car, couldn't have been from this time period because of this design. And you just start to like learn these little details. I've forgotten a lot of them, but you start to pick up on things that you wouldn't otherwise. You're looking at things in a whole new way. And in some ways that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting because the way the film is shot, it's two guys going through the woods. But in the 80s, there was films like that. I mean, the original Rambo was him traveling through the woods. You had Hatchet was when a boy gets lost in the woods. There was a lot of thematically films like that. So I found it interesting that worked its way, whether consciously or subconsciously, into the script as well. So you guys are nailing it on top of the super dope 80s synth music that was
Johnny Mendez, our man. Yeah. Shout out to him. Jeez.
Yeah, the music part is pretty cool too. I was gonna ask about that. So thanks for bringing that up, Geoff. What other elements of the 80s? I mean, okay, life is not something I would have thought about. What else stands out, like just thematically, or the feeling, the vibe, the language? I mean, Jordan, you're acting this thing out. Did you have to bring an 80s vernacular into the movie?
Yeah, I have a line in the film where I don't know, it's a long story, but I say ride the lightning. And I don't know if that's an 80s line, but if it's not, it should be. That was kind of like our joke. Like that would kind of like to amp up the crew and the cast and stuff. It's like, guys, we got to ride the lightning. Let's do it. You know what I mean? Like let's nail this. And this film, since it takes place outside so much, a lot of times we would try to have a schedule ish, but really we were kind of going with the sun a little bit and the weather and being sporadic kind of. We were in a log cabin in the middle of the Indiana woods, and that became kind of our like studio, I guess you would. And we'd wake up in the morning, some of the cast and crew stayed there, and we'd wake up and we'd go to a different part of the woods, and if we were in a different part of the story, we'd find different vegetation and stuff. But I mean, yeah, as far as the 80s, we just felt the vibe. Everybody was feeling it. A lot of the crew was born in the 80s or lived through the 80s. And I think a lot of people just, they liked living it again. And it's cool. And when you're listening to music and, and like you're back to your John Cougar stuff, I mean, there's a few times, like I'm singing on the way to set. I was born in a small town and, getting into that jam. And so, it was just a really cool time period. I think it's kind of like the loss of innocence for technology in a weird way, or like, we were right there. That's when, before internet, before everything, that was the last great decade, if you will.
It was back when computers were designed like you can save your recipes on this.
You could do simple math.
Yeah. By the way, Ride the Lightning 1984 during Metallica's Ascendance. So
perfect.
That's right.
Sure.
Subconscious back to that,
I could hear I listened to the trailer and that was in there, and I'm like, that's a Metallica reference. So whether on purpose or not. Sorry, Geoff, go ahead.
Oh no, I apologize, sir. What is the influence for the title of the film, The Shade Shepherd?
Well, do you want to answer that, Jordan?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was trying to get Faulisi here to make a movie with me for some years. He was the director of photography on a previous feature film I did, Sandcastles. He's a great friend of mine, dear friend of mine, and I love his work and blah, blah, blah. And I was trying to pitch him, because Faulisi's a smart guy and he only does good stuff. And I was writing him a few treatments or 30 pages of a script, 40 pages of a script and whatever. And finally, I gave him this one and I called it The Shade Shepherd. And I gave it to Faulisi, and this was like maybe my third or fourth, fifth attempt. And he looks at it, he goes, The Shade Shepherd. He goes, I like that title. And he goes off to read it in my backyard. I go, we're making that film. And it was just, The Shade Shepherd. It was, Jack is like being the shepherd for Pike.
Yeah. Right.
But Pike was a shepherd for Jack growing up.
Yep.
And the shade is, under the cover of forest or under the cover of, darkness and, not to be shown, so it's a bit philosophical.
No, I liked it. I was kind of picking up on that, but I just wanted to know if there was, if there's anything else going into that. And speaking of
questionable ethics, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, he does like to pull that bow on people. I'll tell you that much. I'm not going to spoil it, but there's a fun scene with a bowling alley. So, the talent in the script in the film is great. I mean, Jordan, you do a great job. The actor with Pike, he's just awesome. I mean, it's hard to sell. From what I found, it's hard for an actor to sell addiction and withdrawal, things like that, like heavy moments. And he was selling it so realistically. Just absolutely impressive. Even
he's incredible.
Yeah. Even I'm sorry, I cannot remember her name, but the woman who plays Jack's wife, that actor. Wow. So she said she had a couple lines there that made me like, oh, it sounds like my wife when she gets mad at me. So it's like, yeah, very, very good stuff. Love it. And it's a small cast, but it's a strong cast. So
cool.
How did you guys land on addiction as your vehicle to create this? This, I guess we could say there's a blackout kind of thing, because that's fairly early on in the movie. But how did you guys land on that? And again, is that something that you have like really close knowledge of? I mean, if you've had someone in your life who's got addiction, you have to be respectful of the disease. It's not just something that you lightly play with. Talk a little bit about that choice for you guys.
I mean, you can start, or I can start. We both have people in our lives, or had people in our lives that I've personally watched people go through addiction and tried to help them through it. And, you know, if you're in that situation with someone you care about, it's incredibly, incredibly difficult. And so I think it's definitely a topic that we both came into with a lot of respect and a lot of personal experience and something to say about it. And it, you know, I think there's an importance to it. And I think people who have either, what we found in just like showing the film at our festival premiere and, you know, up until now, is people who have either experienced addiction themselves or who have lived with or loved someone who had an addiction seem to resonate with this film a lot more than, you know, everyone else, because it speaks to them, I think. And I think that's why the material spoke to us.
Yeah, you know, when I was thinking about that aspect of your movie, it kind of reminded me of A Star Is Born. You know, as someone that's been very close to someone that has addiction, you know, like their brain just doesn't work right, and you're trying to teach yourself how to respond to, you know, to that person, because you love them. You know, in this case, it's a brother we love, but that, you know, they're not going to act the right way. And then I like to say, like, if you could see addiction on their body like a regular wound, you would treat them completely differently. You would like, oh, of course you're not going to walk right. Of course you're not going to act the right way. You're in excruciating agony, you know, all the time. And that came across for sure. I mean, just like, again, A Star Is Born, you watch that part and you're just like, oh God, I know what that is like, you know, and it's tough. So thanks for getting that right, by the way.
Sure. Yeah, we were so close to it that we didn't think about if we were doing it right or not. Like we know, it's like we know this. I know this. It's call it wrong. It might be wrong for your experience, but it wasn't for mine. So you know.
Oh no, you guys nailed it. Like I think of The Last Samurai or whatever it was, Tom Cruise, where he's in a cabin screaming "Sake," you know, and you're like, that's his withdrawal. I mean, come on. It's like you've got a guy, he's in it, he's shaky, he's throwing up, he's doing the whole thing. He's stripping his clothes off because he's sweaty and he's crazy and he's pulling stuff off absolutely like nailing it.
And what Faulisi touched on, I mean, the point was going through somebody that, you know, like you want to help them so bad. And what you were talking about, we would treat them so differently. And, you know, the old truth is, you know, you can't help somebody who doesn't want to help themselves to some degree, you know, and it's like, I know people close to me and, you know, you just want them to change so bad, but it just isn't that easy. So my thought with these characters when we were writing it was like, what if you could really push somebody to rock bottom and then push them even further? You know what I mean? Like light doesn't exist without dark. Like, could you take them through hell to see the light? You know, and we use Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey for inspiration on this. And Faulisi introduced me to it, you know, and we use that as our guide. And Faulisi could tell you all the steps through it in the movie and when they happen.
Oh, that's absolutely wonderful that you use Campbell. I mean, he is, in my opinion, the godfather of modern day structure. And in my book, I actually break down how each new screenwriting book kind of reduces Campbell's structure and simplifies it over time. So I think that's, I actually think that's quite fascinating. We could talk about that for like an hour, guys. But there was a moment.
Hijacking my podcast, Geoff.
This is the last time I'm coming. I'll be on here, guys. So there was an interesting moment with Pike at the end of the film, which I'm not spoiling, but he gets to that moment where he can make a choice of going back or going forward. And that is the character's moment where he significantly changes. And I'm really glad that you guys show that. And what I like about that scene is that you show it with water, because water is a visual interpretation of emotion. So it just makes that scene even heavier. And I thought that was well done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How is it done when you guys have shown it? What are people saying about it?
It's really strange with obviously the quarantine right now for our actual release. It's hard to know. We are still supposed to have a theatrical release, but it got pushed because theaters aren't open in so many places. So it's really strange. The movie came out and it's like I just Google it, so it's hard to know. But when we've shown it live, at our festival premiere, we played at Newport. I mean, the reactions were really great, but also it's they're talking to the filmmakers, so what are they going to say?
Friendly crowd, yeah.
It is a friendly crowd.
We have seen some people, Felice, you touched on earlier, people responding to they had somebody close to them that they related to, and you can always tell, and those are truth moments where you see somebody physically emotional in a crowd, which would be the last place you think you would be. It means you're not, you're either faking it to get attention and you're the best actress I ever seen, or it's very real, and we have had a few of those moments where people were very impacted by it. And those are the moments you hold on to. Those are the little, if that one lady, it like moved her, changed her, it made her day. It was worth the screening. It was worth it, so.
Well, I've said in world premieres with, big A-lister stars having a premiere, and I've said in the audience of the world premiere, and I've felt butts shake in a seat because they were uncomfortable and didn't want to be there. So you can read an audience at a premiere, and if you guys aren't feeling that and you're getting decent vibes, then I think you're obviously doing well.
Yeah, go with your gut on it,
Right. So one of the questions that we always ask about movies, especially independent movies, is what made it into the movie that wasn't planned, and then the opposite is what didn't make it in the movie that you're just it was the last cut that broke your heart that had to do it, but it didn't advance the story.
How long do you have? No.
Hey, just before you speak, Felice, this movie, we shot for 22 days. Felici's first assembly was 3.5 hours. Then he worked over the next year to make it 100 minutes. So go ahead.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a lot. It was hard. It was crazy. And I'm the type of filmmaker where I try not to hold on to things, little details or things that I just like that aren't necessarily important to what we're making. And I try to always be open to what it is that the project's becoming. I guess I just always try to have an open mind. So, a lot changed. And, we did test screenings of this. I tend to test screen my films a lot. And this one, even more so than most. But, big changes would happen between tests. It's like, well, what if this happened? How could this change? There's a lot in there that wasn't planned, and a lot that was planned that's not in there, and it changes, and it's hard to keep it all in a time frame.
And I think it touches on how we were so fluid with shooting. I mean, would you agree, Felice? The junkyard wasn't in the script like it is in the film.
Oh yeah,
the junkyard, where we get the car again, try not to give it away. But it's in the trailer, you know how to hotwire that car. Jack and Pike jack a car. Okay. And we were shooting a whole different type of thing, but we passed this junkyard. And the cool thing about shooting in the Midwest or anywhere outside of the major cities is you can just knock on a door and be like, hey, can we shoot here? Okay, cool. Yeah. I'd never seen a movie be filmed. You guys need anything, got a 6-pack here or, want some music? No music, kind of thing. And they just let us shoot at that junkyard, and it turned into one of the coolest scenes in the film. And that was just on the fly. Felice seeing it, he saw the location, knew how to change the script, and I listened and we did it.
Yeah, it all started because we lost our original location, and then we were like, well, there's this junkyard thing, and we talked to the owner, and now all of a sudden I'm designing a whole new sequence just on the fly.
Yeah, and that's how this film was kind of a little bit. I mean, we had the base plot, but we were fluid, and so.
Anything end up on the cutting room floor? Did you answer that part of the question? I know we talked about.
Oh yeah, lots. Like you said, it was a 3.5 hour rough assembly, so a lot ended up on the cutting room floor. There was a lot more sort of. There's some more backstory and depth and just other scenes that sort of expanded on, just elements that are already in the story, but we felt like we didn't need, and we wanted to make the movie flow and keep people's attention.
Right.
Yeah, and you know, as a producer also, and I produced this with my, you know, wonderful partner Brett Baker, who plays Sticks in the movie, the guy on the boat, you know, with the yeah, he's a great actor. But Faulisi sending me, you know, these edits every day as a producer, and we're talking through it. I'm just being his bounce board, but it was his show. He, you know, it was his thing. He had final everything, and I just would give him my 2 cents. But I'm watching selfishly these great scenes I think I'm great in, you know, like you only get that once in a while, you know, and I'm just watching it just get axed, and it just a lot of heartbreak. But after a while, I just, you know, you just trust your director, and he made the right decision, and he made the best movie with what we shot in those 22 days. So
that's a pretty long shoot for an indie film, 22 days. I mean, you guys are putting some hustle into it too, but like you said, you were stuck with having to deal with nature and lighting and stuff like that. So that had to be difficult to try and get that to match up and everything. So go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, how has the film market been? I mean, there's not a whole lot of stuff coming out right now. I mean, you guys must have timed this well or found ways to do this safely with COVID. A lot of productions aren't even, you know, they've got 80% of the work done, but they can't finish. Talk a little bit about that part of it.
Well, we shot the film all obviously pre-COVID. We shot it about 3 years ago. The editing process took a long time. We were finalizing a distribution. You know, we premiered in festivals last year, and then we were finalizing a distribution deal at the beginning of this year. And so we signed that deal, and we're set to release, you know, this month before COVID happened, and then COVID happened. So. Yeah, it's been kind of strange and bizarre. I was doing final deliveries like in the beginning of COVID, like running around with a mask and gloves on, handing off hard drives, but trying to pass QC. So it was very bizarre, but you know, luckily we weren't having to deal with that on the shoot.
So did you guys work on sandcastles together? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you working on anything in the future together then?
I hope, but we've been so the Shade Shepherd, you know, brain. I mean, we're still, you know, like now though it's released, and it's all, I know that's all Faulisi has been thinking about, because, you know, he's making a mobile app game for it. You know, there's going to be
I thought I saw something like that. I was wondering. So that is the thing. So let's hear about that.
Well, I'm a crazy person, I think is what it is. And I was, you know, we premiered at Newport, and I was like, for whatever reason, it just came into my head. I was like, wouldn't that be kind of cool? Because you hand out your little postcards and you talk to other filmmakers. And my original idea was like, well, wouldn't that be cool if we had an app? Like people like old, you know, vintage video games. Like what if it was like a little video game thing, and then everyone we met at these festivals, they could download our app, and then if they don't delete it or get a new phone, when the movie comes out, we can ding them and say, hey, the movie's out. And so that was the original idea. I started messing around with it. And then we weren't sure if it was actually going to be something we could legally do. And then we got the go ahead, you know, to keep working on it about a month and a half ago. So I'm in the middle of, I'm working every day on making an app. But I'd never made an app or a game or anything like that. I just sort of taught myself to program and pixel art.
He's being humble. It's like really good. Like what I've seen so far, it's like a Mario, but 80s arcade. Like I can play my character shooting a bow. You know what I mean? Like
that's awesome.
Jumping over stuff, you know, dodging birds and stuff. Like it's an adventure game. And back to your first question, I think, because I didn't get a chance to answer what genre I think this is. It's an adventure drama with a crime element. Just want to get that out there. But yeah. Yeah,
is there a short, catchy word like dramedy to capture all three of those genres into one thing?
Ad rama.
We've got a new genre. We've got a new genre invented, ladies and gentlemen.
Ad rama.
The ad rama.
There was a game that we all loved in the 80s. It was an Atari game for the 2600, and it had literally an arrow, like a mechanical arrow, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And a square. You were a square. And then they had dragons. But the dragons were just a bunch of squares together.
So awesome.
And then they were just different color dragons. And then you would have to try to shoot with your arrow. Or stab them with your sword.
Think that in like a year and a half after that, and that's what this game is like. Yeah, like you can see the people, but
the aesthetics a little bit just because I wanted it to look good.
yeah.
Well, it's impressive. I mean, I've never seen that as a mechanism used before to promote a movie, but I think it's a cool idea.
Well, big movies all have tie-ins, so that's kind of another thing we were thinking. You know, if you go on the App Store, you'll find tie-in apps for all sorts of big movies, and we just felt like, hey, this is maybe a new way to promote, and if people download it, maybe they learn about the movie. You know,
there's a term for that. It's the second screen experience.
Oh,
huh. I'm gonna need to see a Break It Down show app now.
Yeah, and this app is not like it's like the movie in your face. The app stands alone as a fun game to play. It just happens when you're like changing levels and stuff. You see a little bit clip of the film. You know what I mean? Like the characters you're playing in like this 2D 80s pixelated thing. Then you see them in real life for like us walking over a hill quick, and then they go to level 2, and stuff like that or whatever. But yeah, cool. Faulisi, he's I mean, everything he tries to do, he is able to do it. It's kind of strange.
What did you guys learn about movie making this time around? I mean, you always add something to the bag. What's in the bag now?
How hard it is. No, but yeah, on you know how hard it is. But this movie really it tested, I think, all of us that were involved. This was the hardest movie I've ever made.
Why?
For a whole number of reasons. I mean, there were personal reasons that Jordan can probably talk a little bit about. I mean, I was in a car accident, and I didn't know if we were going to keep making the film. And just working in the woods, the low budget nature, trying to make a period piece. Like, I was also that crazy person when we're doing that, just trying to cover up anything that wouldn't fit in the period, like making I was there in the beginning of the production phase, still just like making random posters to go at the bar, or like labels for the whiskey that would look like they were from the 80s. So that was really difficult. And then just like the long process of editing, taking it, we had so much footage and there was a lot of really great stuff, and I knew I could make something good with it. It's just what it was. There were so many options, I guess. So it was just a marathon.
Yeah, it was challenging. I mean, personally, it's like we show up to shoot and we're all excited, and our costume designer and associate producer, which is my wife, Natalie Hodges, she gets diagnosed with cancer 2 weeks before we start shooting. Now, lucky, we're both from the same small town we were shooting at. So she was with her parents. We already decided we were going to be out of LA for a few months to, work on this film. So she just started chemo, and it was one of those meant to be kind of moments. I still think magic is in this world, and or whatever you want to call it. And, I don't know. Yeah, I think God was looking out for us a little bit. And it just worked out. I mean, so we were bouncing back and forth between chemotherapy sessions and shooting the film, and it was just tough. It was really challenging. Now, in hindsight, I'm thankful that we both, Natalie and I, had the film to lean on during it. Like, we were shooting it, our mind was on other things. She knew she was going to beat it. I mean, she really just took control of the whole situation. She's much stronger than me in those ways. But the whole crew, like Faulisi and stuff, we kind of rallied around. And then Faulisi, with his car accident, like, we had these things that kind of made us stronger and it bonded us. And it's in hindsight, it's one of those things, if we could go back, I'm not sure we'd redo it, but now we're here. We're so glad we did, if that makes any sense.
And then also, can either of you guys, before the movie, could you hotwire a car? Did either of you have that knowledge already on board?
No, I didn't.
Do you know how to do it now?
I've watched some YouTube videos.
Okay.
Well, it's like maybe an old car, but like now, like I have a Tesla. Like, I don't think I could hotwire that.
Yeah. I used to have to hotwire my Ford Explorer every day to start it because I had bought a starter interrupt key.
Are you kidding me?
the key broke, and I'm like, every day, every
You
time.
you were pulling Grand Theft Auto every morning.
Every morning.
Yeah, but you guys got to know that you're talking to a literal spy here. Like,
oh really?
Pete's like Captain America, and he's so humble about it. He's more like Nick Fury. I'm gonna give you're like a Nick Fury.
I don't know who Nick Fury is.
Oh no,
Samuel L. Jackson, man. Like he's got the eye patch, the Avengers.
I don't ever watch comic book movies.
All right. Well, it's a
because you're too busy doing spy things, and
that's right. Too busy karate chopping people.
Yeah, right.
Too busy being an Avenger.
Yeah. When you're an actual Avenger, you don't watch the Avengers.
Yeah, that makes total sense. That's how cool he is, guys. We just established it.
That's cool, man. You're cool.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. But this is about you guys. So, okay, so this movie is pretty much done. Apart from the app and everything else you have to work on, when is the next one starting? Are you guys working together? Is this like a relationship that's going to continue?
Not right now, at least. I mean, not us together, but I'm not. I need a moment, I think, after I do finish the app. I need that moment of decompression. And obviously with COVID, it's a little unsure of how filmmaking is going to move forward, especially in an indie space. And I don't want to do it in an unsafe way. And as much as I, appreciated some of the freedoms on like this low budget excursion, I think on another film, like I need to make sure I can get paid. I've been kind of working away at this thing and driving myself insane for some time. So I'm not sure what the next thing is, but it's got to like sort of speak to me.
That's a great point, though. Let's spend a moment on this because every time we have independent filmmakers, one of the main things we talk about is like every movie's impossible. And then you've got to go out, no matter what size movie it is, you've got to go out and find the money, and that might mean you need to sign, I don't know, this actor because they equal money. And you're always trying to chase that. But in the indie world, you still got to get paid for your time. You still got to be able to continue to do this. How on earth do you do that?
You don't.
Well,
you rack up credit card debt, but it's really hard. And that's the thing is like, I think making a movie the right way, it takes a ton of time. And whether that comes a little bit quicker by bringing in a bunch of really talented people who are fast workers and have all of the facilities, or it means, doing it on your own, it can be done, but it's time. And it's you really have, if anyone's out there thinking of making a really low budget film, that's the biggest thing you have to like realize is that it's going to take so much more of your time than you expect. And you just have to really prepare for it. If you can't be okay without a job for a year, like you really shouldn't make an indie film.
Well, and then let's push that a little.
Yeah, it looks like you're editing on the. Yeah.
When you're looking at that problem set too, like, you might have to, as the director producer, do a job you don't know how to do. Then you got to go learn how to do that job. And you would love to pay someone, I don't know, $500 to do it, but you have to find the right person, and it's all time and resources. And so when you're trying to capture these things, it's like, God damn it, I know I'll do it right. It might take me 5 times as long, but that's why a movie sometimes takes 3 or 4 years to make, because you've got to go learn how to build the damn app.
And
Jordan,
like that with the opening credits. Oh, go ahead.
I was just you're exactly right in what Felici's saying. It's, of course, like, there's some people, of course, who worked on this movie who got paid, but the people who have the most to gain from the actual movie itself, the director, the lead actor, the writer, you know what I'm saying? The producers, like we all do this just out of passion. And, and I think, back to Felici, if you're thinking about making a movie, I think there's a time to make a movie like this. And I think we just did it. I think it's that time when you're, in your 20s, late 20s, you're starting to get serious. You made some shorts, this and that. If you really want to be a filmmaker, if you really want to have a story to tell, then, I think it's worth doing and biting that bullet, to be honest. Now, Felici's saying, like, could we do this again? No. There's no way we would do this again. I would never ask Faulisi to do this again. He would never ask me to do something like this again. But what we do is we take this film and we can build upon it to maybe have more resources to be able to do it again in a different way. I have a child now. Like, we're in just different places in our life. I mean, 3 years is 3-4 years when we started writing. It's a long time in a life, and things change, and it was just part of the growth. And yeah, could we do it again? No, but you know, we might not be able to go the next step if we didn't do this to begin with.
And a show like this too, where someone can hear this part of the story, someone who writes big checks to make big movies, they want to bet on guys like you. And you're right, Jordan. Like, you shouldn't just give away that much of your time. You know, you're getting everybody paid. Okay, great. Next time we need a budget that's 3 times this. So we see what you can do with next to nothing. Yeah. You know, now let's give you something so you can do it. And there's people, yeah, and you guys know this. There's people all over the place that want to do that. It's just you have to get next to them. And by the way, you still got to make your movies and advance your career in other ways. And it's balancing this relationship side of things and selling. It's a lot to manage.
Yeah. It is. It's a tough business. I mean, you know, as you guys know, it's crazy.
Yeah,
hey, Geoff,
you're preaching to the choir, man. I mean,
yeah, it's.
I've been there. Started from the bottom, you climb your way up, and one thing. I actually talked about this earlier today, Pete. One thing I've noticed is, like, as I put in a boatload of hours, 60 to 80-hour weeks, right? Just bang, bang, boom. But when you're passionate about something like Chris and Jordan are about this project, the energy is there to do it, to perform. When you're not passionate about something and you're trying to put in time, it just beats you down. But when you love something, you'll find a way to make it happen. I think it's exactly what you guys did with this. And also, Jordan, I wanted to say there's thank God that your wife recovered and that she's okay, because that's
yeah she beat it. Yeah, that's
wonderful.
It kept me on the edge though during shooting, and I think now that I see it in hindsight, I can see me going through that on screen now.
Yeah,
you know, it's interesting to see that now, and but she held me up for real.
Oh wow,
yeah.
How does that represent on the screen? That's a great thing to explain.
Well, Jack, I would say and this is part of Faulisi editing it this way, because, you know, he would have me play it different takes, different ways, you know, okay. But there was an emotional side of Jack that I didn't really get in the script, but on screen and while we were shooting it, like, there's a few moments where, you know, I'm just watery-eyed. There's no other way to say it. Like, I'm just, you know, I kind of start breaking down, but not really giving it in. I'm not like crying my eyes out. You can just see it. And that's how I was basically through the entire shoot to begin with. So it became like this, you know, it played into the story, and it shows the love. It shows the love for his brother. Like, I was able to take that and apply it to my brother Pike in the film, you know, and how much I loved him because how much I love her. And, you know, there's that possibility of things can't go the way and I might lose you. It was very similar on the foundation emotionally for me. And I didn't think about it then, but I see it now.
Faulisi, did you see it?
Yeah. And that was a tough thing as a director, obviously. And as his friend, and Natalie, his wife, is also my friend. So like, it was a difficult thing, but then it is my job to get a performance out of him as an actor. And I know that that's what he wants. How far can I actually push those ideas or make him live through something that's really traumatic that's happening, that's not, you know, there was a lot of questions as we were going through it for me of where that line was, of how much I could lean on his current situation to try to get him to give the best performance.
When you have a line like that, what's your default? Do you, like, I like to say, like, you slow down. I slow everything down. This is my common professional advice. Slow down until the point where you're like, I have to speed up, and then work your way up from there. That's sort of how I advise people. But yeah, you're pushing him in a very dangerous place, but you need him to be in that place. So how do you work that line? How do you not do too much, not do too little? How do you find it? Because it's not easy to find that balance.
I think it's not easy, and I don't know, like, it's just such a specific situation that, you know, it was like a little bit of an instinct. And if I was really questioning if it was like, is this wrong to do, then I err on the side of not doing it, because I, you know, care about him as a friend and I care about people. But, you know, there's there's it's a difficult thing. And if also, I would ask, I'd ask some other people that I trusted, like, is this too far?
So no behind the scenes blowing up then.
Blowing up?
I mean,
no.
There was, tense. There's always tense moments when you're shooting, for 16 hours, but we all respected each other. I mean, it was mostly Faulisi, myself, and Randy, Randy Spence, who plays Pike, my brother. That was the majority of people conversing. And, we all have so much respect for each other. We all have worked together on other films before that. Yeah, you get tense, but I have a theory that, like, if I can't get mad at you and you can forgive me, well, then you're not really my friend. You know what I mean? Like, friends fight, brothers fight. You know what I'm saying? But we didn't really I thought we would have more on this one just because we were out in the muggy, sticky mosquitoes.
Yeah.
Of, hot Indiana summer. I mean, the one morning we went to go shoot like a creek scene and the creek dried up overnight.
Oh no, are you serious?
So, man, it just, you're going with, I call God's light and, the earth, and you're just playing by its rules. And yeah, I can get tense, but, Felici's a very gentle soul anyways. He's just a gentle person to begin with. And, he was very gentle with that. And the ways he's talking about, he pushed me, they were just, like he said, instincts of knowing me as his friend, to just asking me more of a question than trying to talk me into something. He knows I'm smarter than that, I hope. Like, it was more like he would just ask me a question like, well, what do you think about this? Or, what are you trying to get here? And it was a very minimal dialogue, I felt like, with director actor as far as that. I felt like we had a shorthand because we wrote it together. Like, we were breathing these characters for a year before we started shooting the thing. So it was more like, Randy coming in from North Carolina, them, really honing it down because Faulisi and I had just written the thing together. So,
yeah. Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, when you're looking through that lens and you're watching, all the action happen, what was the moment where you're just like, yes, that's the shot, like that? I need that shot. It's wonderful. Your favorite moment in terms of the production.
My favorite moment, and I think it might be one of Jordan's too, because he was behind the camera at that point.
He already knows what it is. That's great.
Yeah, so we were shooting in Pike's trailer, and we were shooting what became like basically the opening sequence of the movie, which that goes to like what was different afterwards. That was like two scenes that were like a eighth of a page long. It was like Pike does heroin was in the script, but we were there and it was a daytime shoot. We had gotten there late, so it's now nighttime. We're in a trailer park where people live. The guy who said we could shoot there is nowhere to be found. We're now having to light it like it's daytime from outside, and we're running a generator, a noisy generator, and have these bright lights shining where like people live. So already we're worried that it's about to get shut down. Yeah. And then it starts raining, and I'm just in there. It's just literally me, Randy, and our sound guy in this trailer. And my first AC is pulling focus from outside, and the whole crew is like there watching. And I'm just in there, and I can hear the rain coming down, and I'm just waiting for like the lights to shut off and for someone to make a call of like, hey, we can't shoot. But we're getting some of my favorite footage in the movie. I loved it so much. It's like it became the opening. And this was like one of Randy's first real big moments to act. I think it was like day 3 of the shoot. And he was just doing such an incredible job. And him and I have known each other for a long, long time. We work together well. So we're just like literally shooting out entire cards, just in one take, the camera on my shoulder. And I'd be like, go back, do that again. We're just maneuvering. And I remember just coming out of that trailer and just seeing the whole crew there standing in the rain, just watching this tiny little monitor. And I just think that was the moment that like everybody felt like they knew what we were making and why we were making it. Like the movie we aspired to.
Like they knew it was a real movie. When you get on an indie, you're expecting maybe some mom and pop kind of thing. You know what I mean? And to each, if you want to make a movie, tell your story, but there's an expectation once that opening scene, the opening scene, or what became the opening scene, when the whole crew saw that, they were like, okay, like we're serious. Like we're actually going to really take this movie seriously. And I was asking, I think, a gripper, I'm like, what light is that? And he was telling me, and I was Googling while the rain was coming down and he was shooting. I was Googling how much water can that light take on before it burns. You know what I mean? Because it was, as a producer, and one of the few times I'm not in the front of the camera, it's my job to shut it down if, something's going to blow up, but I couldn't. I was willing to let it just rip on fire and tear down that whole RV park to get the shot or whatever happened. But it was a beautiful moment. And it's just one of those special things where art is just, it comes together in your life and everybody's together and the music is there. And so it's also my favorite moment too. And I had nothing to do with it except for watch.
So I think that opening was pretty powerful. And I like how no spoilers, mirror the ending, right? The ending is mirrored. But the really cool thing you guys do is that opening could potentially actually follow the ending scene. And I thought that was pretty dope, because we know what happens, we know it's resolved, but if you go back and you look at it, you go like, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah, interesting you say that. Yeah, that was definitely a bookend that Faulisi talked about. And if you didn't trust him to go that route, that he could have went that way, right?
Yeah.
He was a 6-pack away from it. You know what I mean? He could have been.
It was cool. So
yeah, very neat.
You guys got a thing to say in closing? I don't want to take too much of your time.
Oh, Jordan, you got anything?
Just that. You can rent the movie on every.
Yeah, we should probably plug it. Yeah, no, if you've listened to us talk this whole time, maybe check out the movie. We'd really appreciate it. We'd like to keep making them.
Yeah, it's on any cable. If you have cable, just search for it. Amazon, Apple TV, Vudu, etc. This is the first thing. It came out. Indican Pictures and Lionsgate released it domestically. And we'll have a DVD coming here soon too, and they'll rock these platforms for a while, and we'll see where it goes from there. And looking forward to an international release also. So we'll see.
Yeah, if you guys look on the screen, The Shade Shepherd, you can go to Amazon. If you use our link, that of course gives us a little kickback and helps the fellas out because you spin their thing on Amazon. But wherever you watch it, it's going to be good. And then you've seen the links throughout the show. And if you're listening on the podcast side, just look in the show notes for the links. We will send you there. Geoff, anything in closing?
I really enjoyed it. I mean, I rented it on Amazon myself, and just really appreciate being here, getting to chat with you guys. And Pete, always a pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure's ours. This was a lot of fun. You guys are cool. Thank you so much for having us on here.
Oh, no worries. Our pleasure. All right, let me sign this thing off. Stand by.